just another one for you. Somebody's asking, if God created all life, why not create everyone a Christian?
God created all life, why not just create everyone Christian? I guess it depends what you mean by Christian. Often when we think of kind of a religious system, we think of something that, you know, maybe you're born into, maybe you just adopt. But ultimately what we've been trying to say this week is to be a Christian is to have a relationship with God. It's to be connected in a real and personal way to the God who's made you through Jesus and what he's done for us. So if being a Christian means having a relationship, then that's not something that God can force upon us, because no relationship can be forced upon the other. They have to be freely chosen by both parties. Now, the wonderful thing is, in spite of the fact that we've often said no to God, he still wants to say yes to us, and he's done that in Jesus. But he can't force that upon us, but he gives us the choice. He gives everyone the choice. And we can respond to that love, or we can reject it. And there are consequences, wonderful or terrible either way. So I'd say God couldn't make people Christian, because actually they wouldn't be Christian in the sense of having a relationship with God. You can't make someone have a relationship. But what you can do is you can show love. It's a bit like, you know, if you want to love someone else, or you want to get into a relationship with someone else, you don't twist their arm around their back, stick a gun to their head and say, love me, because that wouldn't be love. But you can do loving things that would hopefully cause them to notice you and potentially love you back. And in the same way, God has shown his love to us in Jesus, and it's our choice as to what we will do with that. And wonderfully, I'd just also say, you know, we often think, you know, Christianity is this white Western middle class thing, but actually, you know, where is the Christian church growing most rapidly today? It's in places like Nepal and Algeria and Iran. All of these countries that wouldn't traditionally in our minds be considered Christian countries, but literally thousands, millions in the case of China, coming to faith in Jesus. Not born into a Christian family, but choosing to opt into this relationship with God. And I just say, don't miss out. If you've not done that yourself, make sure you do.
And sort of leading on from that, Michael, somebody else has asked, why could God not just have created a world without death?
Why did God not create a world without death? Well, I'd say actually he did. According to the Bible storyline, in the first chapters of the Bible, we see that death was not part of God's world in the way that it was originally created. God is the source of life, and he poured his life, as it were, into his creation. And what the Bible says is that when humanity decided to cut itself off from God, that's when death came into the world. And there's kind of an obvious reason for that, isn't there? If God is the source of life, if we cut ourselves off from him, then ultimately cut off from the source of life, we cannot carry on living indefinitely. It's like if I pull out my phone from the plug, it's going to run dry at some point. It needs to be connected to the source for it to keep on going. So we need to be connected to the source of life. We're disconnected. And the Bible talks about death in different ways. It talks about physical death, but it also talks about spiritual death, this being disconnected from God. And we can experience that now, even though we haven't yet experienced physical death in our bodies. And wonderfully, Jesus came to experience the death that we deserve, physically, as he died on the cross. But more than that, spiritually, as he experienced the separation from God the Father as he died, so that we can have that death defeated. Jesus is the Death Eater who's come to destroy it. And yes, God created a world without death. It is part of our world, and that grieves God. And you know, when we look at the stories of Jesus, he weeps when he sees the reality of death and the pain that kit brings. But wonderfully, if we know and trust Jesus, that doesn't have to be the end of the story. Jesus says, he who believes in me, even though he dies, he will yet live, which is a wonderful promise that one day death is going to be a thing of history.